Good morning, Unity Spiritual Center. Welcome, where our mission is transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world. My name is Reverend Dr. Gary Simmons, and I'm here with my co-minister partner, Reverend Dr. Jane. And we're here to affirm together what we stand for, and so I will speak our opening affirmation and invite you to speak it with me. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the Good. Together? There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the Good. And so if you have an exception to that principle, you're in your right and perfect place, because we're here to recognize that those exceptions are really inviting us to enter into an experience of demonstrating who and what we've come here to be. All right, so we welcome you to our service today, and we just want to mention that all of our important announcements happen through our e-newsletter, and that happens every Wednesday. And so if you're not receiving our e-updates, our e-news updates, please sign up on our website. If you're watching online right now, you're probably right there already. And go ahead and give us your email address, and you'll receive all of our important updates. And we've got a lot of updates that are coming our way, and so I want to welcome up to our podium right now our board president, Joan Breckland, for a board update.
Good morning. I'm really happy to be here today.
Just a second, Joan.
That's not on.
Okay. Getting the podium mic on. All right, go ahead.
Okay, good morning. I'm really glad to be here today with you. Today I'd like to share with you two really big topics, reopening and the ministerial transition process that we have upcoming through the last half of this calendar year. This is a challenging time for all of us, but it's also a time of wonderful new opportunities and new directions. So first of all, I'd like to share with you a little bit about where we're at with reopening. First of all, our top two priorities as the board contemplates what's going to happen are, number one is the safety and health of the congregation and staff. And number two is maintaining a vibrant and engaging ministry focused on transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in the world. So this requires connection and generating transformative group energy. Connection comes in many forms. We've already been doing many of them, including wellness calls, classes, live stream services, spirit groups, and our after-service Zoom call. But we also recognize that online connection doesn't meet the need of everyone, it meets the needs of some. We recently did a survey, thank you for those of you who participated in it. We found that about a third of our congregation are ready to return in person, and about 2/3 are wanting to wait until they perceive that it's a little more safe to do so. So as the board has considered our next step, we are considering both the Unity Worldwide recommendations and the governor's requirements for reopening of religious organizations. The governor's requirements include 17 compliance points, including having a comprehensive plan, social distancing, wearing masks, except for when we're very few and far apart like we are right now, and many other conditions that are not onerous but are there to be met. So the board and staff are working to pull all of that together and get those things in place. The current recommendation is that there not be any in-person youth ministry programs or choir rehearsals or performances at this time. But here's our next step. The board has made the decision to begin an outdoor Sunday unplugged service that will begin within the next few weeks. This will include the talk and a longer meditation. And we feel we can do it outdoors because the likelihood of transmission of the virus is so much less. With cases of COVID-19 increasing significantly in our area right now, we're opting to wait to reinstitute indoor services, but we will continue our live streaming and our Zoom after conversation online. And the board, of course, will be frequently reevaluating this with the goal of offering indoor services as soon as it's safe. And also, our youth ministry team has begun to work on developing creative activities for children and youth and parents during this time. So that's where we're at with reopening at this point. The second question is, well, what's happening with the ministerial transition? So I wanted to give you a picture, first the big picture. Jane and Gary's final Sunday will be on December 13th, and our transition process will begin this fall. There will be an interim period. There is a Unity Worldwide practice of wanting congregations to take time between ministers, to have an interim period, both allowing them time to let go of the current ministers before re-engaging with a new one, and also just time to discern where we're at and where we want to be going. Because we've already done a good part of that work, the length of this interim period for us hopefully will be shorter than for many. We're hoping that we will be able to have a new minister in place within 6 months of when Jane and Gary retire. So that's the big picture. So here's what it means. As a mission-centric ministry, we invite you to join the board in our commitment to use this transition time to live ever more deeply into our mission of transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in this world. We will be forming a transition team to organize the retirement celebration for Jane and Gary and to oversee the entire transition process, the interim period. This team will be composed of the facilitators of various smaller teams that will be formed to assume distinct aspects of the ministerial responsibilities. We will also form a ministerial search team that will be responsible for the many tasks involved in finding the person who will be the best fit as our next minister. Starting this fall, volunteers will be needed in a variety of capacities. Their work may be online or it may be in person, depending on the circumstances at that time. So our next step in getting this process underway is that we will be having a virtual Zoom town hall meeting on August 2nd at 3 o'clock. And the link will be available by mid-July or soon thereafter. And at this meeting, you will have an opportunity to hear more details, to ask questions, to engage in a community discussion of these upcoming changes, both related to reopening and ministerial transition. So we hope you'll join us at that Zoom meeting. In the meantime, please feel free to contact me or any other board member with your wonderings, your concerns, or your questions. And I just send blessings to each and every one of you. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Joan. It's a lot to take in, and we really appreciate having all that information to consider. And so as we prepare for our meditation experience, I just invite you to let these next few moments be an opportunity for you to simply open yourselves to being present, open yourself to being here in this moment, and recognizing that this moment has a fullness to it. It has an essence to it. It has a essential component to what we're here to acknowledge and to know. So as I open myself and as I invite you to open yourselves to this presence, to this one moment, let us simply recognize that our work together is to be a witness, to bear witness to that activity of spirit that right now seeks to live itself in us, through us, as source, as oneness, as love. And so as a way of activating a deeper sense of this presence, let us begin to breathe together. Let's do a few box breaths, breathing in and holding and releasing and resting for the same duration. And so just follow my lead as you're able. Breathe in and hold and release and rest. Breathe in and hold and release and rest. Breathe in and hold and release and rest. So we rest now in the awareness of our oneness, of our connection to an infinite and eternal web of life. We rest in the awareness that all things are working together for good. We don't look outside of ourselves for evidence of this principle, but rather we claim it, we know it, we own it. We rest in the awareness that all things are working together for good. We rest in the awareness of light, of intelligence, knowing that there is wisdom and purpose in all that is unfolding. And we contribute to that unfolding in our resting, in our openness, in our being present. We rest in the awareness of knowing that we are source unto our own life. We are the avenue through which possibility takes form and matters and makes a difference. We are the channel through which love and gratitude and understanding and empathy and care emerge as a restorative balm of God's love, soothing, healing, comforting, mending. We rest in the awareness of our worthiness. We rest in the knowing that there's nothing that we need to do in order to be worthy of that which is seeking to express itself through us. We simply have to claim it, recognize who and what we have come here to be. And so as we go beyond these ideas, these thoughts, these words, and just simply allow ourselves to rest in the awareness of the silence, of that part of us that is here just to listen, to receive, to be in the stillness. Breathe in and release. Breathe in and release. We release ourselves now to rest in the awareness, knowing that we are the avenue through which this expression of oneness, this expression of abundance and wholeness is our true birthright, and we live in receivership of this now. Thank you, God. So it is. Amen.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever seen. Everything I've lost or won, everything I've ever dreamed has brought me here to the present moment here, to a new beginning here, and I'm seeing life so clearly now. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Get ready, my soul.
Get ready, my soul. Well, it's said that confession is good for the soul. And the reason for that is because telling the truth, while it may absolutely be abhorrent to the ego for the humiliation that might arise, is actually becomes a gateway to freedom. And the path of awakening for me involves seeing what was formerly unconscious and speaking it out loud. It's a confession of sorts. And it means bringing egoic, defensive assumptions and beliefs out of the hidden darkness and laying them out on the table in the light of day. If we don't acknowledge limiting beliefs or even know they're there, we may as well give up any hope of changing them. But it takes courage to do that. The ego is petrified of exposure, but it turns out that seeing it is the precursor to transforming it. And there's a whole lot going on in our country right now. And I have seen much in the last few weeks regarding my own behaviors and beliefs and ingrained assumptions and notions that have basically startled me into transformation. My talk title is Startled into Transformation. There it is. Startled into Transformation. And I have to tell you, it's not the way I pictured it happening. You know, the New Thought movement has such a positive, uplifting message that we are often accused of just being a feel-good spiritual path. Fluffy, ego-boosting, take 2 affirmations and call me in the morning type of teachings. And I've been studying truth principles all of my adult life, and specifically New Thought teachings for 40 plus years. I was introduced to unity through a Catherine Ponder book on prosperity, and I was hooked. Change your thinking, change your life. Speak only affirmative words, deny the illusion. Sounded easy enough. Sounded like something I could do. But what I missed, and here's the confession part of things for me, is how hard that is to do. You know, hidden assumptions have a lot of clout, it seems. They actually run the show. It turns out you have to negotiate those beliefs and ultimately reckon with the ego, and that's the slippery part, because the ego fears for its life, terrified it will not survive the transformation. And as long as the ego continues to hold on to those reins, we will continue to follow the same unconscious patterns of behavior that we downloaded in our early years. And we will wonder, why am I still dealing with this problem? You know, I've meditated, I've visualized, I've prayed, I've treasure mapped. How come it's still here? And it all comes down to the difference between translational and transformational teachings. If you remember, we have spoken about this before. Translational are the feel-good teachings. They kind of spruce up the dream that we're all in. They don't ask us to stretch or to change. They minimize the discomfort. Transformational teachings wake us up from the dream, sometimes rather rudely, and they bring the discomfort of it all into awareness, into center stage. And we need to embrace that discomfort, and we actually grow from it. We evolve from it. So transformational teachings don't often feel good, at least in the beginning they don't. And I think of it as the difference between a nice, pleasant back rub and a deep tissue shiatsu massage, with the elbows and all the rest. Now, I always feel good after those deep tissue massages, but I tell you, my preference is the back rub. And sometimes we just need that back rub. It's not a bad thing. But there comes a time when transformational work shows up for us, and when we reach that fork in the road, we see it's a time for us to make a choice to grow beyond the limited identity that we have believed ourselves to be, and to begin to express who we really are. And I think we're currently there, culturally. The exciting part about this is that the transformative path leads us to go beyond the limited self. Beyond the limited self. Not because that limited self is wrong or bad, but because it's just part of who we are. And part of our evolutionary growth is to transcend limitation, to integrate those parts of ourselves that we have kept orphaned or pushed away, the shadow qualities, surrendering the littleness that we think we are, the ego, as we grow beyond it into the authentic self, who we have come here to be, the true self that we are. So transformation transcends that separated self-image and goes beyond it to experiencing the true oneness that we are. And the golden opportunity that helps us to put these transformational teachings into practice are times when we are triggered in some way, or that our buttons are pushed. And we use that discomfort to grow. We talk a lot about the Q process here at Unity Spiritual Center. If you are someone who has not tried it, or tried it a long time ago, didn't finish the 21 days, or who's just gotten out of the practice of the habit, remember, it's good to remember that it is a transformational process, not translational. It's about recognizing when we're being run by old limiting beliefs and ingrained unconscious patterns, and then making a change to become free of them. Totally free of them. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And I would argue that they both have a place in the process, but I agree with his point that making the unconscious conscious is the key to our awakening. And as I look around right now, I am seeing that happening on a cultural scale. Many people are beginning to see our unconscious behavior coming to light and are ready to make a change. Is that you? And again, the ego gets very uneasy about all of this and defensive. I'll tell you when the defensiveness shows up for me, when I hear the words white fragility, white supremacy, anti-racism. Right away, it offends my egoic sensibilities, and then the insane roommate in my head goes off on her rant. I am not a fragile white person. I am certainly not a proponent of white supremacy. I don't have a racist bone in my body. I don't like being anti-anything. All that comes up. And whenever I have that kind of reactivity, I pay attention to it. I pay attention. And then guess what I do? I buy the books, I take a breath, and I read them. And I find out that what they're talking about is a system that's corrupt. And if I'm upholding that system wittingly or unwittingly, then nothing is going to change. They're not saying that I'm a bad person, just that the change I need to make is one of withdrawing my support from that system. And before I can do that, I have to see how I'm upholding it. I have to become aware of the cultural sea that I'm swimming in and make the unconscious conscious. Take the red pill. You see, that's our work as spiritual beings, having a human experience. I read the true story of a white woman who moved back to Michigan after living in New York State for several years. And she said that a curious thing happened when she moved back. In her younger years in Michigan, she had been pulled over 3 times in the 15 years that she had been driving there. And each time she was issued a ticket, twice for speeding, once for an illegal left turn. All 3 times there was a legitimate reason for her to be pulled over. Now, when she returned to Michigan later in life, she was pulled over 5 times in 1 year. And a very curious thing happened each time. She would watch the approaching officer coming in the rearview mirror, and he would unholster his gun and come up to the window hesitantly. She'd never seen that happening before. And when he looked in and saw her, his face would register first surprise and then annoyance. And when she asked, "Why did you pull me over?" each time they would say, "You were impeding traffic, you were going too slow." She was going the speed limit each time, and when she said so, the policeman would say no, she was going slower than the speed limit and causing traffic issues, but he was going to let her off with a warning. Now this kept happening. She even took her van in to get the speedometer checked. One time she even asked one of the officers, "Is there a new law in Michigan about impeding traffic when you're going, to the speed limit that I haven't heard about?" She was genuinely puzzled. And the policeman gave her an angry look, waved her off, told her to be on her way. She was so puzzled as to why this kept happening to her. It was an older van. She thought maybe that's why. Then one day, she was in a coffee shop waiting for her order. And the person behind her in line said, "Lady, there's a black man trying to steal your van." And she looked out and realized that her black poodle, who always sat in the front seat with her, from a distance, from behind, appeared like someone who had a black afro. And every time she got pulled over, that was why. Her jaw dropped as she realized what was going on. Now, the reason I tell this story is because when I read it, I suddenly saw how this whole other world exists that I have no idea what it's like to be subjected to. This woman had never experienced anything like it. And she was horrified when she realized it. This is what it feels like to be racially profiled. That's what she thought. This is what it's like to be driving to the store, following the laws, and be treated like a criminal because of the color of your skin. And I have to tell you, this story impacted me in a big way. And I'm beginning to wake up and see that white privilege does not mean that you have an easy life without challenges. It means that I haven't had to layer on top of those challenges the fear of being pulled over at gunpoint because of the color of my skin. It means that I've been free to go shopping anytime I like and not be followed around by a store clerk to make sure I'm not stealing anything. These are things I've taken for granted. And the system of racism is what perpetuates it. So one action I've taken and will continue to take is to no longer support any television shows or movies that depict people of color as criminals or any other stereotypical way. And I'm forming an online study action group for those of us who feel called to really look at this and to work together on making change. And we'll begin our time by studying and putting into practice the book, Me and White Supremacy. Now take a breath. It's okay. I've already begun reading the book, and it's powerful work, but it's safe work. It's healing work. It is divine love in action work. It's oneness activism. And if you are interested in being a part of this, it'll begin July 7th, and you should probably order your book now because it takes time to arrive. Very popular book. Some of you have already emailed me to say you want to be part of this, and I'll be sending you a link to register. But also, watch for that link in this week's e-news update. It was in last week's as well. You can just go to that link and register online. Please consider joining this. The challenge becomes recognizing when the ego is reacting out of fear or blame or defensiveness, and then with self-compassion, doing the transformational work of owning the projection, calling back the power, shifting our perception is the cue process in practice. And all the while seeing that this thing that I've been busily defending is not the truth of who I am. Now, here's something I have found very helpful in this work, and that's realizing that when I use the term transformation, here's what I'm really talking about. Restoration. Restoration. When I stop being run by unconscious patterns of behavior, I am restored to the wholeness that is the truth of my being already. Do you see that? It's moving from letting the ego have the wheel to handing the keys over to the true divine identity and relegating the ego to passenger status. Not annihilation of the ego, it's invited along for the ride, but restoration of the totality of who I am, head and heart combined. And I believe with all my heart that in this time of our human history, we have the opportunity to make that leap, to become the embodiment of the divine on this planet, creating a world that works for all. I really believe that. Do you believe it too? If you do, I'm going to invite you to go to the comments section and type in amen. Go ahead and do that. I just want to see who's listening and what they're saying. C.S. Lewis writes, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. And he calls that shout God's megaphone to rouse a deaf world. And that's exactly what's happening right now. We have the opportunity to use this time to change the system, to bring in a new system, but we can only do it together. We can only succeed by aligning with the greater mind and drawing strength, inspiration, wisdom from its depths. This is transformational work. Make no mistake about it. Marianne Williamson likens it to how she felt when she first got into spirituality. She thought God would come into her life and spruce the place up a little, fix it all up. Translational work. And then one day she looked out the window and saw a giant wrecking ball coming towards her. Now here's what I want to say. That giant wrecking ball is only scary to the ego. And that's why we're living in such polarity right now. There's lots of fear that my way of life is being threatened. But you see, the ego's been running the show for so long, and the largely invisible social structures are being exposed for what they are, and that is threatening to the status quo. It's natural to be afraid of that. But the thing to remember is this: we are not getting rid of who we are. We are restoring ourselves to the truth of our wholeness. And the realization of that was enough to startle me into transformation. The theologian Dr. Barbara Holmes was speaking about the changes that came after the civil rights marches in the 60s, where the world witnessed the violence being perpetrated on people of color. And she said this: domination could not withstand the steady gaze of the inner eye of thousands of awakened people. Breathe that in, because I think her statement is a call. If I change the word could to can, it becomes a call to action for me right now. Domination or racism or whatever we want to put in there as what we're focusing on to shift, but it can't withstand the steady gaze of the inner eye of thousands of awakened people. Try to get an image for that. That's contemplative action. That's oneness activism. seeing with the inner eye of an awakened person, startled into transformation. And our spiritual development actually means that the divine essence that we already are becomes increasingly able to reveal and express itself as we actualize our potential. Transformation of this world lies hidden within the undeveloped capacity of every single one of us. Are you up for it? Because we can also just close that inner awakened eye and go back to sleep. In my comfortable little life, I can easily do that, cocooned from others' suffering, conveniently forgetting that there are children locked in cages at the border, separated from their parents, being traumatized as we speak. I can turn a blind eye, once again, to social inequality through my inattention, uphold the very corrupt system that's causing it, the new Jim Crow. I can respond to this time of upheaval and unrest in a translational manner, giving lip service to how unfair it is, posting some memes of support on social media, and then returning to my privileged world where racial profiling doesn't touch me. In fact, I benefit from it. You know, I'm an immigrant in this country. How many times do you think I've had somebody come up to me and tell me to go back to the country I'm from? How many times do you think ICE has been at my door? Well, I can tell you, never, never. It's a culture that is built to prioritize people with white skin, and it's so easy to slide back into unconscious habits of living that support and sustain that world and stay asleep. You know, oppression hides in systems, and I am so waking up from this hypnosis of cultural oppression, and it isn't fun, and it isn't fluffy, and it isn't feel good, but I can handle it. I can handle the discomfort. I can stay with it as long as compassion is along for the ride, you see. Spirit guides us. Find that within yourself. What is yours to do? And it's about restoration, restoring ourselves back to the wholeness that we already are, and being that change. You know, as a child, I was always moved by the 23rd Psalm, and I still am. Just the words, "He restoreth my soul," can bring such peace and a sense of being held, being carried, being guided through this. New Thought author and teacher Ernest Holmes says, God's not going to bake cookies except by you. But we're not asked to do it alone. We restore ourselves to the spiritual beings that we are. We restore the power that we hold in our hearts. We restore the ability to make change, to be change. That's the work. So how does this translate into day-to-day action? How do we take our inner work out into the world? How do we embody the change that we seek? Well, you may have noticed that trying to move existence around is exhausting. And that's what I've been trying to do. In order to become a resource of change, we have to resource. We have to return to the source. We need to meet our outer world with our inner, the outer world with our inner world. We have to do that. It has to be heart-centered. It has to be spirit-led. Here's why, as written by Zui Kwok. Egoic power is destructive. Power of love is not. It's simple as that. It's about acknowledging the truth that I've held from my conscious awareness all along of what's in the way, and aligning with that greater mind, professing allegiance to a reality where all are embraced in divine love, and begin living that, begin acting as if. So please join me in doing this work by beginning by studying and learning together how we can be the change. When this week's e-news comes out, follow that link to register, or you can email me as well. And it's a daytime class. If you can't do it in the daytime, but you could at night, let me know that. I'll start a second one. So let's prepare to have our inner eyes opened widely as we follow together the path to startling transformation. This is truly an awakening moment for us on this planet. And we want to listen to the wise counsel from the Sufi poet Rumi as he says, don't go back to sleep. Don't go back to sleep. The dawn has secrets to tell. Don't go back to sleep. The world needs us to help it back to restoration. And so it is.
All right, way to go, way to go. Now give me back my remote.
Oh, give me back my remote.
That's right, we got to go to the next thing.
I know.
So this is time to take it to heart. So let's move this over here out of the way. So, on our drive down here this morning, we were talking about how, especially, you have such passion for what it is that bothers you, that you really want to own and take to the next level. But it's one thing to kind of recognize that there's a growing edge, a learning edge, a necessity to kind of develop, but at the same time, we live in a complex society, and we have multiple priorities that compete for our energy and awareness. And so talk a little bit about your sense of balancing the reality of what's needed and yet your own challenge to kind of stay balanced.
Yes, because it's very easy to get out of balance with this, especially if you're starting to see things and you want to change them, and, we just don't have it quite there yet. And so as a minister, I have to tell you, I struggle with this. I struggle with talking about it and running the risk of having people, offended by it, or thinking, oh, there she goes again, spouting off, or this is negative. It's not what I didn't tune in today to. I like the feel good part of this, and at the same time, speaking my truth and seeing the opportunity we have as a humanity. It's going to take all of us to step up and say, it's time, and I'm here, and I'm saying yes to this. I'm saying amen. And let's do it. And it's so, we're kind of struggling our way through, tripping, I'm in other book studies, and we're all in the question of what do we have to change? How do we do it? Help us understand. I didn't understand before. I'm ready to listen. I want to hear it. And so it's easy to stumble. It's easy to stumble. So I don't pretend to have all the answers by any means. At the same time, I really feel like Spirit is nudging us to say, if you want change, those cookies aren't going to get baked unless you do it. So let's be Spirit in action. We can't just fall back on, I'll hold the whole thing in prayer. I do that. I certainly do that. But I've realized how I can use that as a bypass. That's my job, is to do that, and then I'm good. And I'm not suggesting going out and doing anything crazy about it either, but I am feeling like we want to find that balance between being aware and involved and listening to what Spirit's telling us is ours to do, and then taking action that makes a difference. I really feel like we're at a crossroads, and it's time.
And I think it's important to emphasize that that our experience, your experience and my experience, because you pull me into into what's mattering with you, and what I've experienced is it's true what you say. This is a safe approach to recognizing that we have been unconscious, living in a systemic dimension of our worldly experience that it no longer serves the greater good. And if we don't awaken to those, to where life runs us instead of we being conscious and choosing what it is that we're wanting to help co-create, then we are contributing in an unconscious way to the systems that support the problems. But at the same time, when we take it upon ourselves to learn about the systems and recognizing, no, it's not about me being a bad person or being ignorant or me being insensitive. It's I have fallen asleep within a system that just runs a way of being that is not fair. It's not legitimate. It doesn't take into account who and what we've come here to be as spiritual people.
It really doesn't. It's like being caught in the matrix.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it is time to take the red pill.
Red pill time, yeah.
That's right. Okay, well, let's leave it at that, and we appreciate everyone and everyone's attention so far. We are discovering, though, through our analytics that the average view time of our Sunday experience is less than 30 minutes. So some of you are shutting it down way before the real gems happen. So
You're
you
probably
never know.
gone by now.
They're probably gone by now. Okay, well, let's just move it on into the offertory then.
Let's do
So we want to remind everyone that we are still in need of your financial support. The board struggles to kind of manifest the abundance that's needed in every single facet of our operations. And we know that you care about what's going on, so we just want to remind you that we welcome your generosity and support, especially in these times. So there's that green donate button, and if you find that on the website, in the meantime, let's affirm our offertory statement together.
I know that my giving blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give and receive. I give thanks for the abundance that is mine to share.
And obviously, we were going to move next into our live Zoom meet and greet. And also, by the way, I want you to pay attention to the midweek e-newsletter, e-news update, because we're going to be changing the Zoom link. The church is now in possession of its own Zoom account, and so we'll be migrating to the church Zoom soon. So we'll let you know when that's going to happen, but do check the newsletter, make sure you're up to speed. All right, well, we want to thank everyone for their ongoing support, and this concludes our live stream worship service. We're going to transition now to our Zoom meet and greet. And God bless you all, and we'll see you on the light side.
Indeed.
All right.